Hi, happy Tuesday. I'm Michelle Renee. If you're here with Facebook, you already know that because you follow me or you're friends with me or what have you. I've been doing a weekly kind of post training check-in. Um, been doing the advanced training through Cuddlist. It's the first session that they've offered. And we have a great group of people that join us once a week on Zoom for about an hour and a half. And today's topic was trauma. And I've delved into trauma a little bit. A while back, I read the book "The Body Keeps the Score," which is all about. Well, this is my impression, my review of the book. Was a lot about how we kind of overlook the trauma in people's lives and just kind of diagnose them with something and treat them with medication or whatnot without really diving into what brought them to that place. So trauma. And trauma can look lots of different ways. It can be, PTSD. It can be the other range to, I don't want to rank trauma, but what would seem like less of a traumatic experience. I have trauma in my past. You have trauma in your past. We all are dealing with trauma. Some of us realize that we're dealing with it. Some of us don't realize that we're dealing with it. And part of this advanced training is really honing in on those more therapeutic clients. So I get a couple different kinds of clients. I get the client that just it comes to me because they want to relax, and great, awesome. Sometimes I get really clients that are coming for more. They're coming to learn something about themselves, or they don't know what they're ready to learn, but they know they're open to something. They're just trying something different. That maybe they're already on a path of personal growth. However they end up with me, whether they know they're doing it or not, their body is going to co-regulate with mine. Something I'm really good at is kind of calming people down without sometimes they even realize it. A lot of it is breathing and getting them into a different pattern of breathing and just like taking the nervous system down a notch. So trauma, back to the topic at hand today. Part of this training has been a lot of mindfulness, and it's interesting how it all kind of came full circle today. So we had some assignments at the beginning of this 8-week course, and every week we got to pick what we wanted to do. And they all were little assignments around mindfulness. So one of the assignments I did was taking morning walks where I wasn't allowed to be in my head. I think I posted a video about that a while back. I had to stay really mindful of the current situation. So to do that, I would say, oh, look at the trees. See the color of flowers on that plant. I hear a car going by. Like I would purposely talk to myself and point out things that I would see or hear, kind of, or smell, like engaging my senses. And then I brought Dax out from Michigan, and I found that my morning walks were way easier to stay focused on the present because I could focus on my dog. I tend to use walking time as a time to really get in my head because there's not a lot of distractions, and I love that time. But I followed the instructions, and that was something I noticed was that it was easier when I had the dog to focus on. And I never have a problem in session staying present with my client, but something about being alone and I go into my fun place. I really like going in my head. I know some people avoid it at all costs. But I'm also an overthinker, so it's a good practice for me to stop doing that. Another exercise we could do was taking, say, an object and holding it for, pick a period of time and just really practice, being mindful of what it feels like and how it feels to you. It's called waking the hands. And it's a good habit to get into. A lot of times I'll take my coffee cup because it has a lot of different textures to it and really focus on how it feels, what feels good. It's just really using objects for my pleasure, which is something people sometimes use people for their pleasure. They can do that without a person. They can do that with an object. Another thing was staying locked on the couch for 8 hours. I couldn't do that. I did an hour, and then I spent another couple hours doing things that I wanted to do that I thought about while I sat on the couch for an hour. Things like that. Fast forward. Today in class, we're talking about trauma. Keep going back there. We're going to get to the point of my story here. And what I came to realize is that all these mindfulness practices that I've been working on through this class have really helped me notice when I can feel triggers in my body. So I want to share an example of what that feels like for me. And this is new for me. And as much work as I've done and whatnot, paying attention to my body is very, very new to me. So I'm watching Making a Murder season 2 on Netflix a while back. I was binging the season over the course of a couple weeks. And there's an episode, and this is not any kind of spoiler, so don't worry about that. There's an episode where the family featured on this show is talking about how their scrap business, their salvage business, has really taken a hit with this murder conviction on a family member. And they're talking about how they're scrounging to make ends meet, to pay the electric. They're selling off things to do this, just to basic survival. And like I felt it in my body, and I can't remember exactly where I felt it in my body looking back, but I'm sure it tends to be around my chest area tightens up. I notice a feeling, and I didn't make notes when it happened to what the feeling was, but I felt it in my body, and I quickly said to myself, "Oh, Michelle, you're feeling triggered. Where do you feel it, and what are you feeling? And why are you feeling this way?" So so I made took kind of mental inventory of my body and realized where I was feeling it, and I thought about what is making me feel this way right now, because it was a shift. I felt this shift in my body, and it was the storyline. And to go backwards, back in 2008 when we had the big 2008 crash, I was living in Michigan at the time, and the auto industry took a huge hit, and my business with my husband at the time was automotive. We specifically worked with a lot of dealerships, and dealerships were closing left and right. There certainly wasn't car sales happening. Like, our business came to a screeching halt, and we sold off everything. We filed bankruptcy. We lived in my in-laws' basement for a year and a half in like one room with me and my husband at the time and our 2 children. Like, we lost everything. And so watching this triggered that for me. It's still a fear that I have. But how quickly I was able to, just by calling out the feeling that I was feeling and recognizing it and naming it, I didn't spiral. Like, a lot of times when I start thinking about money, I spiral. And then it becomes like questioning, what am I doing today to better myself? Am I making a bad financial choice by doing this work? Should I have just gone back to, I started doing the shoulds and the, all the second guessing. But this day I didn't do that. And it was really easy just to clearly say what was coming up for me and be fairly okay with it. So yeah, that is what I learned about trauma today, is that just by the mindfulness practices has helped me. Being in a safe relationship has really helped me dive into some of my past trauma. Those are 2 things I can offer my clients, which is something I had been offering them, but I just hadn't named it that way. Some other takeaways from my notes. This was a really good one. Madeline, our the person that designed the training for Cuddlist, and she's part of the advanced training too. She said, just because I'm afraid doesn't mean I'm in danger. And that's what we have to start learning to tell ourselves, is that when we feel that feeling, it is fear, but it doesn't mean we're actually in danger. And that's how we can kind of stop that fight or flight or freeze response. And I don't know how many are familiar with the freeze part, but we've all heard, I think, fight or flight. It's that, a bear's chasing me. I better run feeling, even when it's not a bear and maybe it's just financial disaster looming or whatever bear is in your life. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. I really enjoyed today's class. I think we're going to dive into it a bit more next week for our last class. I'm glad that I invested in myself so I can invest in you. And I know that everything I do, whether you're a client of mine or not, kind of ripples out. So thanks for watching. And I always appreciate your support. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.